not a committee of all council, it's really important that we have an overview, particularly from Councillor Van Baker as the chair of this joint committee. So I'll hand it over to you to report back from that meeting. Thank you.
Yes, so we actually had 2 meetings, the highlights of those were that in the first meeting we farewelled Anne Redstone, Councillor Redstone from Hastings, who'd been very active in her time prior to being a councillor, also later as councillor on the Hastings District Council, and working with the Joint Committee, worked tirelessly and spending time at the community panels, but unfortunately due to her health she had to stand down, and she was acknowledged by us as a Joint Committee of the work that she's done, and a lot of the work that we are going through right now is in part due to her efforts that she's put in. So we thanked her for that. Then the second meeting, we had another farewell of Keith Newman, a man of 1,000 words, and I gave him 5 minutes, and it turned out to be 20 minutes when he spoke, when we invited him. But we invited him because he actually had written a publication on behalf of what now no longer exists, which is WOW, Walking on Water, a community entity that did an enormous amount of work in conjunction with Anne Redstone, who actually started that particular community group. And the title of that publication, I think we all got a copy of that, which is Saving the Cape Coast, a Legacy of Frustration and Hope, presented by Keith Newman. And he didn't talk much about hope in his 20 minutes that allowed him 5 minutes for, but it was mainly frustration. And I think it's important that we know as a council, you get to hear it as well, who weren't there at the time, that he was frustrated with predominantly the way this particular council has disrupted some of the planning, the good intentions of the region, and good intentions of the people on the coast, finding solutions to stop erosion and stop inundation. And what should have been a positive farewell became a bit of a negative farewell from his point of view. It won't be his last hurrah, I'm for sure, but as the chair of WOW, which is now actually formed into a coastal committee with different drivers, we thanked him for, once again, his work he had done. He spent a lot of time on the community panels as well. So that was community involvement in our 2 meetings. Apart from that, we as a joint committee are spending a lot of time and have spent a lot of time in workshop on finding the funding model of what the cost will be for ratepayers if we are going to adopt the Tangoa to Clifton coastal hazards strategy. And that's been a lot of work, very complicated, and I'm saying that we will never get there exactly in the right format, but I think we've given it a good go, and that will be workshopped with us as a council, I think on the 18th or 17th?
July, I think, from memory, but I'll check.
Yeah, so that's going to be very interesting, but there are a few options that we want to bring to the council as well in regards to submissions and talking to the community in September to see if it's the right move for Hawkesbury Regional Council to take on this amount of work. And of course, as we're now going through the long-term plan, to have an additional issue that or a rate that we need to take on board, and we need to follow through as we take on the strategy, is going to be very, very difficult discussion to have. So I just want to prepare ourselves for that. But I think we have worked since 2014 as a joint committee, given the people on the coast hope that there will be a strategy and there will be a solution, whatever that solution may look like, that I feel that we need to work this through. It's something that erosion you cannot peg back when it happens. Inundation is slightly different. but I think we need to almost, I wouldn't say with haste, I don't like the word haste, but we need to give this some real oxygen and some real focus, because we're dealing with the coast where there is real erosion. There are real problems. We only have to look at H18. If it's still H18, maybe it's H17 by now. And we need to really find solutions for that community, and whether that's Hawke's Region Council or whether that's under a joint committee, we will find out what the appetite is from our community. So if there's any other questions, Madam Chair, then I'll move that we accept both these minutes.
Thank you for that, Councillor Van Beek. Any questions before we go into moving the papers? Councillor Sears.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. So the workshopping we're doing in June or July, is that for regional councillors, or is that with the joint committee with regional councillors?
We, as a regional council, where we'll work with Phil, where we actually look through the modelling that we've done, the funding modelling, to see where actually the cost will lie in due time.
Thank you.
Looking forward to that, thank you. Can I have a seconder to receive? Thank you, Councillor Williams. All those who agree say aye.
All right.
Those against, carried. A report from the Risk and Audit Committee. Who would like to lead out on this? We don't have Stephanie, the independent chair, with us.
If
You're happy to lead?
Yeah, I'm
Councillor
happy to,
Harding, thank you.
I'm just happy to just introduce it. Look, I think we can take the paper as read. There's a lot of good mahi going on and getting the risk assurance framework up and running. That's all tracking well from my point of view. And so this was a pretty standard kind of a committee meeting with lots of detail, but nothing remarkable to report, so I've got nothing to add.
So no decision items, they were information. Okay. Councillor Williams.
Thank you. A couple of questions. Firstly, the Section 17A reviews referred to at 5.1 that are being scoped out by the executive leadership team. What's the subject of those reviews?
They cover quite a number of areas of business. It's my intention to have a discussion with councillors before we kick them off, so that we are on the same page as to what we look at over the next 6 months. Okay. Make sure it's aligned to your strategic refresh.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Peter. If I can be permitted to comment here, Chair, I've raised the issue of health and safety being a matter for at least corporate and strategic, because full council, attendance at that committee. Councillor Curtin's raised the point that committee reports, when they come up to council, don't travel with all of the associated other reports, and I think it's a good solution that if a committee chair's got the view that that report does need to surface to this level, it should. We can't do everything. We can't be on every committee. That's why we have them. I truly believe, for line of sight reasons, that health and safety should be in corporate and strategic. In the meantime, I'm left taking the papers at face value and or reading all of the papers for that committee, which means, well, I might as well be on it. So, I just think health and safety is that important. It should be at corporate and strategic, and I just wanted to put that on the table, and others may have different views. But
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I'll just allow Councillor Harding for a response to that.
Yeah, so that message, Councillor Williams has delivered on a couple of occasions now. I sympathise with his frustrations. That message, my understanding is that issue currently sits with the chair of risk and audit, and I don't believe there's been a resolution. So that is work in progress to decide from that chair.
Yeah, I would support Councillor Williams' views around having eyes over health and safety to a more detailed level, possibly to what audit and risk to visualise. So I think it's good that as a full council we have that information.
thank you.
And CNS would probably most logical.
Well, I'll take it up with the chair.
Thank you very much.
Very much, Chair and Chair.
Councillor Sears?
Kia ora, Chair. 3.3, the risk perspective around the non-diversified investment portfolio, etc. The last line says, Council has noted HBRIC investment strategy review will look to come back to Council if they deem this high risk. I'm wondering, have Audit and Risk asked something specific of HBRIC around this particular question, or is this rolled into the general question that's been asked from Council to HBRIC around an assessment of diversifying, excuse me, sorry, anything
I think
from
I can
HBRIC?
probably answer that, Chair.
Thank you.
It was really in respect of the eggs in one basket scenario that evolves from having 55% of our investments in the port, so it was just posing that question.
Specifically?
Yeah.
Thank you. Any further to note, Councillor Curtin? No. If there are no further questions, we have the decision to accept the report, receives and considers the report from Risk and Audit Committee, noting the resolutions of the committee that are stated there. We have a mover, Councillor Harding and Councillor McIntosh. All those who agree say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Thank you very much. We now move on to item 9, the submissions received on our long-term plan. So I invite up Desiree and Sarah and Jenny. Thank you.
Good morning, councillors. So the purpose of this information paper, cover paper, is for you to receive the 822 written submissions and Facebook posts on the draft 3-year plan. We'll also have just a couple of procedural matters that I'll throw to Sarah to cover in regards to late submitters and some changes to a couple of submissions. This paper also covers the comms and engagement that we've done, which Jenny will cover in a second. But just overall want to say 822 submissions is a record number for a long-term plan. I think that's a testament to the comms and engagement that has been undertaken, the 12 drop-in sessions that you as councillors led, and the variety of social media and other media posts throughout the process. The paper also does a breakdown of where the submissions were received in para 15 of the report. And yeah, I'm just happy to take any questions, but first I'll maybe throw to Jenny to just cover the comms and engagement undertaken.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks. Kia ora koutou, everyone. Sorry, I've got a bit of a croaky throat. I'm just recovering. Hopefully you'll hear me okay. So, so I think this campaign did really well and met our campaign objectives, and they were really to reach a broad and diverse cross-section of the Hawke's Bay population and to provide opportunities for the community to engage with us by encouraging conversations and questions about our work, and to build greater understanding of us as an organisation and to communicate with empathy and understanding, mindful of those who've been affected by Cyclone Gabriel. So the primary messaging for the community was to have their say and about supporting the community to recover and build resilience for future events after a tough few years. Our approach was to get our community to the table and to learn more so they can have their say. And the campaign was designed to attract attention with light, warm colours, simple imagery, and it had 2 distinct phases, which was early engagement and then the consultation itself, and then we sort of wrapped everything up as well. Before the consultation opened, we let the community know it was coming up. We gave a flavour of consultation topics. The consultation itself was very intensive in terms of comms and engagement and marketing. And so you'll see from the paper there all the different kind of ways we went about it. I think that what we learnt from the drop-in sessions was that it's really good to go to where people are, and so that's probably another learning for future engagements. But I certainly think we provided a number of ways for people to have their say, and so we can be confident about that. And any questions?
Thank you, Sarah.
Hello. Yes, kia ora koutou. We received 2 submissions after the agenda had been published, so as is normal, we table them as late submissions as well and ask if you'd like to consider them as part of the overall submissions as well, and we could take them into deliberations. I do have a paper copy of them here, and I know that Leanne has prepared an additional resolution if you wish to accept them as council. So that's probably one that we could do at the end of the paper. I do have a correction that somebody noticed an error in their submission after the agenda items had been tabled, and they wanted it formally corrected at the meeting. So I just want to flag that submitter number 790, Kirsten Wise for Napier City Council, would like to table. And it was a pure error. Ticked on the wrong box was ticked on the online form. They ticked the form to say that they wanted to phase out Hawke's Bay tourism over 2 years, and they intended to maintain.
I noticed that because it didn't reconcile
and
with
it
the
did
commentary.
With the commentary as well. It was purely an error at the other end. And in the same vein, probably coming from the same office, for the mayors for Napier City, Hastings District and Central Hawke's Bay, exactly the same thing. They
ticked the wrong box.
They ticked the wrong box as well. We couldn't correct it before, as it had already been published, but I just wanted to note that, and we will make sure it's corrected for the deliberation.
So Sarah, just to confirm, the 2 late submissions, are they included in our packs?
No, they're not. So this I do have the copy. I have got.
So once we confirm them, if we can confirm them in resolutions, you'll send them to us. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Right, questions, Councillor Williams.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of questions, and then I want to make an apology. 822 submissions, Desiree. We've got 1,200.
Yes.
Are they what?
These duplications.
I can explain that. Yes.
Yeah.
So we've got up to number 1,200 and our submitters. Our WUFU form, which is our online form, registers a submitter even if they've only completed page 1. So they get assigned a number. Now, if they don't go through to page 4 and submit, that number still stands, but it wasn't submitted. A week out from the end of the consultation closing, I did contact those people and say, I noticed you started to make a submission. Would you like to go back? So you'll see a lot of skipped numbers, and that is why. So the 822 is the actual number. There were a number of people who didn't actually press submit, and so they are not in this pack.
Okay, thank you. I hadn't noticed all of the numbers actually, so I must have been reading something else. The pie graph, the colours on the pie graph and the key, I just wanted to make sure I understood those. Is the big red one Hastings?
Yes.
And which one's Napier? Is that the 183?
Yes.
And okay, so out of region, is that the 27 or the 13?
68. Oh, sorry, out of region
27.
is the 27, yeah.
And that leaves Wairoa as 13. All right, and I just wanted to make an apology if I can. I think we misstepped in not supporting Councillor Foley in Central Hawke's Bay for his drop-ins. We probably should have been alive to the fact that, we were accompanied by each other in the other districts. But Councillor Foley, I think, had a pretty brutal time down there, and we should have been there with him to support him, and I apologise for that. So I just need to think about that for future dispersed engagement methods. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Bolt.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Williams. I was going to ask a question around that, but first of all, thank you. Well done, team, on the record number of submissions. that's awesome to hear that. My favourite part of this job is engaging with our people, and so as tough as it was at times, it's still always good to hear from our people. So I did have a question around that, Jen, and thank you specifically for coming down and supporting me. It wasn't easy. But just wanted to get your feedback on that format and that situation for CHB down there. You know, what you thought of that and what any learnings for next time. Particularly thinking back, you know, my first term, we had the big hall meetings and lots of staff, and that was completely different.
Yeah.
Have you got any feedback on?
I think that well, actually, both of those sessions, there's a fair number of people for you to get through, right, and have meaningful conversations with. And so I think if we're going to do it informally like that, it's either, and sometimes you can't get a real gauge on the numbers that I'm going to get. It's kind of just who turns up on the day. So maybe just having a think about how we structure those drop-ins so that you can still have those informal conversations, if you like, but then people don't feel like they're missing out on talking to you, which I think was something that there was a comment from a couple of people around that wasn't there, but I think that goes to Councillor Williams' point about having councillors there to support as well. So.
Cool, thanks.
Councillor Curtin.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. And before asking my question, absolutely tremendous effort has gone into this. The volume of work and the data entry must have been horrendous. So well done, team. You've done it particularly well with so many submissions. And dropping in on occasion, I noticed, if you like, the war room where you were mapping, if you like, spikes in and receipt of submissions. What messages did you get out of that? You had an event, an activity going on, and then a spike. What was the best outcome from engagement and from that exercise?
Probably you're talking for.
Sarah has actually mapped the number of submissions, so that's one count that we can use to follow engagement. The vast majority of submissions still were received on the last 2 days, which is usually the case, that people leave it to the last minute, and particularly the organisations take the full month to prepare their submission. There was quite a peak on the 17th of April, I think, which is the day our rates calculator went live.
There was also the combination, there was a postcard that went to every ratepayer.
Yep.
And then, yes, it combined with the ratepayer going live. Yeah, so that was the early spike to show that card is valuable. We did actually get anecdotal feedback, how much they appreciated just getting a postcard rather than the full document as well. It felt right, the right balance as well. But we'll do further analysis on what our best bang for our buck is in terms of circulation and engagement, and take some learnings. But that'll take us some time to work through, Councillor Kirtley. But we will like to feedback.
Councillor Harding.
Kia ora, Chair, and through you, just a question for staff, just a simple question around analysis of submissions. Will we expect to receive any statistics on how the questions were answered? Are you able to provide that? Or?
Yes, so for the deliberations report, there will be the delibs paper for each topic, and for those topics that had a tick box, we can give pie graphs. We'll also do some sentiment analysis of the other topics as well. So,
Well done. Councillor McIntosh.
Thanks, Chair. The 800 odd, that was a record. Can you tell me how that record compared with others?
Sure. So 3 years ago, it's a record for, I must clarify that, it's a record for long-term plans. So we did receive 1,090 on the Māori constituencies, and 3,000 odd for the Napier IPO. But for a long-term plan, our second largest was 3 years ago, which was 750.
Ish.
And sorry, can I have a secondary? And if this is a subjective one, but I agree with my colleagues about the thoroughness of the consultation. I concur with that completely. I guess alongside the if you like, what's the word, controversial nature of the subjects they're dealing with would have an input into that. I don't know if you've got any comment on that, but.
Just to say that 3 years ago we had a similar rates increase. It was 19.6 or 19.5, very similar, and a similar number of submissions.
Okay, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Just a comment from me in support of everything that's been said. I think the quality of the consultation document, the executive summary and the postcard have really highlighted the quality of submissions and the hearings we're going to be hearing over the next 2 days. So thank you for your work. A question is, I recall from our revenue and finance policy that we had submissions that we discuss be suited better for long-term plans. So will they be a part of the deliberations paper?
Yes.
And analysis of those, because we don't want those missed.
Yes, we will probably include those with we were planning to have a delivered report on affordability.
Yes.
So we will attach them to that delivered report.
Thank you. Councillor Van Beek.
Yeah, once again, amazing work being done, and having such a large number of people responding. And if you read through it, there is definitely an undercurrent that, why am I writing this? Because you're not listening anyway. Okay, that's definitely an undercurrent. So I believe that by us communicating to them, the postcard definitely was a really good way of actually just succinct, this is what you're going to get. They didn't have to read screeds of paper. They actually can go online and then actually get answers. And I think that's something we should learn as a council, is that if we ever ask someone to make a submission on something that will relate to money, their money, they should know what they're in for. And land value versus capital value, we didn't have that calculator. So there was you would have seen a lot more. And there's still an undercurrent of people, even in the submission that I've read through, that is an issue for them. So I think because this is actually almost a double long-term plan issue, that we actually have doubled. We have a 19.6 rate increase, which is on top of a change of our rating process. And I think that in itself really has rolled people to actually submit as well. So well done with the communications. I think it's getting better and better. But I think the number also has to do with the ratepayers feeling somewhat frustrated and actually wanting to, although we're not going to listen to them apparently then, and not everybody's saying that, of course. So I've got 2 questions. When, as you say, everybody does it last minute, actually last minute, and at 7 o'clock it actually went out, even before that. They went on to public. I see that we only went to the Hawkesbury Regional Council Facebook page to remedy that and say, look, we went out an hour too early. If you still want to put a submission in, you can do that either via email. The Facebook page is actually quite a minor. I thought maybe communications should have been better for that, because our whole area of Havelock North, their community page is actually quite large. They said, sorry, it's closed. You can't submit anymore. And so people just went to their Chardonnays, I suppose. That's what they do in Havelock North, isn't it? No. And they gave up on the whole issue. Also, once again, thank you very much for the rate calculator. It's an amazing tool, and like I said before, we should have that always in place now if it's to do with ratepayers' money. However, there are discrepancies. Like I've, for instance, looked at one address in Clive, and I don't know how widespread, because I already spent too much time in my non-sleeping hours during the middle of the night working away on the calculator. But I looked, no public transport in Clive. It can't be right. So I went to other places, went back to that address again, and there it was. So the rates calculator wasn't actually giving the right, and I've took screenshots. So I've got screenshots of looking at an address, coming back to the address later, and all of a sudden, actually, the rate calculator had changed. Can you explain how that is possible and how widespread it could be? Because that would make a world of difference to some people.
Can I get you to answer three things? One, around revenue and finance, there wasn't a rate calculator, but what was the alternative at the time? The second was around probably how did we make contact above and beyond the Facebook page for the outage of that time? And then the third, your last question about the rates calculator and maybe some differences in time of what gets produced. If you can answer those three things.
In regards to the revenue and financing policy, we had sample rates, we had average rates, and we had the ratio. The reason that we...
That actually wasn't a question. It wasn't actually a question on the land value versus capital value. That wasn't a question. That is a given.
I could answer the first one around so the time when it switched off at 7 o'clock rather than 8 o'clock, I was monitoring the emails probably about 7:15. I was putting my kids to bed, but and there were a number of emails came through at the time saying, look, I've been online trying to submit, is locked out. I was able to email those people back immediately as well. We had probably about half a dozen. So the email address was very close to the online submission page, and there's always an alternative to email your submission as well. So I did capture those people that were trying at that time and failed, and some of them went back in line. As soon as it was back online, I went back to them. I said, it's open again, you can go back in. So I captured that, but in terms of our Facebook page, we weren't able to remedy that until the following day. However, that evening, we did keep it open an extra hour. I was in contact with our web manager.
Thank you.
And there's one more question. The rate calculator, why was there discrepancies in the rate
Yeah, I
calculator?
can't answer that, sorry. That's a surprise to me. I didn't realise it did that, so I'll have to work,
There may have been a delay in that data being uploaded, if you remember, maybe on the day that it was being uploaded, the refresh may have...
This was already quite into the
yeah,
it was, okay, then
I actually can't answer that, so
Can
I'll
we just have
to go
some
back
feedback
and-
from
yeah.
there, just to see what had happened there? Okay, thank you.
I'm just
Councillor
going to
Williams?
move the paper, Jenny.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Harding. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, just a couple of observations. Yeah, absolutely. Acknowledge the effort. It's been a huge year for you guys with the RFP and now this, an engagement on both. We've had the transport plan alongside that. So, yeah, I think that needs to be acknowledged, and I wish some of our ratepayers would understand some of the work that our staff actually do. I do think, however, in saying all of that, that if it weren't for the Tourism Hawke's Bay and the Tomato Park issue, I'd be very interested to know what our number of submissions would have been. And to that end, I'd be quite interested to see I wonder if this could be organised, if you were to strip out submissions on those two topics and produce another paper that's just got all of the submissions on the other topics that aren't those two, so that we don't lose the messages. Because I read so many things about tourism. You know, I'm concerned that I may have sort of glazed over when someone's talking about flood protection at Tiawanga or something like that. It might be worth having and just sort of getting a sense of what those issues are in more detail. So that was one issue which might assist us for deliberations. So just that, but I do think we also need to acknowledge that our reputation as an organisation is seriously at risk at the moment. And we've got a real job to do here in the way we respond to that. This is a great opportunity here, and I really hope we seize it with both hands, because if you combine the cyclone and then the RFP, the upset over capital value, and now the rates increases, people getting 500% rate increases, there's some real energy in there that I think has driven that, and I'd like to turn that to the positive. Today, Chair, just say this, and Councillor Foley raised this offline, can we all please really, really try to ask questions? And one of the techniques you might try is asking questions about them. Where do you live? You know, what's the issue that's most important to you? Ask about them, not, well, I actually think tourism's a really good thing or whatever, and start loading a whole statement about it, what's ever in your head. This isn't about our heads at the moment. I just really want to encourage to get through the day, let's make this about them, let's ask true questions without statements and lectures at the beginning of them, and we'll get there and we'll hear the messages we need to hear. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Harding.
Kia ora, Chair, and kia ora, Councillor Williams, for stealing my thunder, just about everything you've said. I just endorse, as usual, you say things far more cogently and authoritatively than I can ever aspire to. However, I would simply say, look, it has been a fantastic body of work by staff and councillors. So I think we can be proud of that work. I'm not sure that we can be so proud of the number of submissions that we received, because I think, like Councillor Williams, that is an artefact of the degree of consternation and concern in the community about some of the changes to Marta Park, Hawke's Bay tourism, the level of changes in Central Hawke's Bay. So I don't think it's a badge of honour, but it's been a good process, and now I hope that when we do come to decisions after deliberations, that we will demonstrate we've listened. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harding. Councillor Sears.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just because Councillor Williams has opened up that conversation, which I entirely agree around reputation, I think fundamentally we're at that point where we know the process that we use, where we create a plan and go out with a few binary questions, isn't really the way our community want to work with us anymore, and hasn't been for a long time. And of course, the Future for Local Government review done 2 years ago talked primarily about that process of being engaged with community and starting, whether it's, through participatory democracy or these early stage conversations around what we're developing before we get to the point where they get to tick a box at the end, and then the vote doesn't necessarily go that way, even if the submissions are in favour of that necessarily. So I think that we all understand that and know that. We all know that it plays on our reputation, because we simply look like organisations that do what they want and then go out for what looks like Clayton's consultations. And actually our real challenge is how we make changes to that, how we step forward into a new way of working with community where it can drive the types of outcomes that it wants and feel like they have partnership in the way in which their lives, which is primarily driven by local councils, not central government, actually get to play out. So I just really support that and encourage, again, us to try to put to the forefront of what we're doing amongst all the busyness. We know that. We know what we've been through with the cyclone, what our staff have needed to do to create safety, but really it's going to take a huge amount of effort and commitment to try to do things differently. And I really support that and really encourage it. So thank you for putting that there, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Councillor Sears. Councillor Brodley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, like you, Councillor Foley, it's also my favourite part of the job is getting out and amongst our constituents, and it's been a fabulous both with a couple of months really with the lead-in as well. And I note that there is a small number of submitters from the Wairoa district, and I understand that a lot of that is driven by, it's usually anxiety that drives people to pick up pen and paper or go onto the website and make their submission. And I also note that a vast majority of the Wairoa constituents are actually pretty comfortable with the changes that have been made, or proposed. However, with the fun I've been having over the last month or so engaging with my constituents, they have told me and shared with me a vast number of ideas and concerns and moments of joy even in the proposed plan. And it's not actually a question for staff, but thinking about how we bring that into the deliberations of the oral ideas that we've captured, all of us councillors at our drop-in sessions and at our community hui. Is that just something we unpack inside our heads, or is there a way of sharing what others have heard from their people? Madam Chair, is that How do we do that?
Matt?
Through you, Chair, I think you bring that armed to the deliberations discussion, so you will have a sense as the representatives of your communities of what they've talked to you about, and I think it just helps inform those deliberations.
So during the deliberations, we'll be able to bring that, put it all through from what we've heard. Very pleased to hear that those submissions from the Revenue and Finance Policy will be carried through because they were really important, and the sense that they were dropped off is quite prevalent in the community, but it's fabulous to know that they are not and that they are included, and appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roden. Councillor Foley?
Thanks, Chair. Look, I just want to start by addressing the community of Hawke's Bay, really. The record number of submissions is great to see, and just thank everyone for the engagement. It was a reasonably intense period, but as already stated, I got a lot out of it, and really reminded me exactly why I'm here and who I represent. So I just really want to say thank you to all the community, and that's not just Central Hawke's Bay. It was obviously a lot of engagement from particular parts of CHB down there, but also the wider Hastings district and some of Napier. So I really enjoyed getting out and about. One of the I guess things that they did do was really dive much deeper than I thought they would than the document and the information was provided, and so I needed to come back to staff quite often, and so through you, Nick, thanks heaps for the accessibility and getting a lot of extra information that wasn't readily available or immediately in the documents, and that really helped. So thank you for that. I think we have thanked staff for a lot of the media and engagement. I think we also owe our thanks to a lot of other people out there that helped raise and spread the comms and the issues, and so that all helped and just create further debate and discussion out there. So that was great too. And probably just particular mention around the staff member I need to thank is Chris Coomer, which I don't think's in the room this morning, but just around the financials, Chris was a big help to me in the background. So thanks to Chris and the finance team.
Thanks, Councillor Foley. Councillor McIntosh?
Just a further endorsement to the positive nature of the submissions in the context that, for me, actually quite a lot of solutions provided with the submissions. So it wasn't a submitter saying, I don't like my rates going up, and only that. Often it was a submitter making a comment, but then offering a solution to that. And there were a few moments for me reading the submissions where I thought that's really helpful for us in deliberating.
Thank you, Councillor McIntosh. We have there are no other speakers, we have our recommendations, which also include accepting the two late submitters. Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder, so we'll put that on the table. All those who agree say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Thank you. We move on to item 10, which is the hearing of submissions for our long-term plan. Desiree.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. So this item asks the council to receive the verbal submissions. Attached to this paper was the schedule, and that moves us into the hearing part of the process. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Pretty straightforward, councillors. There are no questions or clarifications needed. Leanne?
Through you, Chair, I have just spotted an issue with the timetable, being that it goes from 10, instead of 10 to 10:10, it goes 10 to 10:30.
Right.
So what we will do is bring forward Sarah speaking to
number 717, but also if any of the submitters come early, we'll ask whether they're
Yes.
willing to come forward earlier.
Thank you, Leanne. No issues with that. Fantastic. Thank you, team. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that item? Thank you. Councillor Williams, Councillor McIntosh. All those who agree, say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Thank you, team. Well done. We have the discussion for minor items not on the agenda, and the only one, Councillor Van Beek, is around the commercial funds.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's been ongoing for a reasonable time, and I've just got a question that doesn't need to be answered now, but I just want to raise it.
Yes.
That there is an amount of outstanding money that actually has to be, or either is going back to, from what I understand, going back to government, or distributed somewhere else, or it's going to be used for the intended purposes. And what unfortunately happened was there was an excess of funds that wasn't applied for, and the farming industry realised that actually the conditions around applying they thought they wouldn't actually be able to apply for this funding. When that actually became clearer and some of the farming leaders actually looked into this, that the conditions actually were such that they actually could apply for this funding. By that time, the funding window had closed, or the application window had closed. And since then, Rural Support Trust, Hawkesbury Rural Support Trust and others actually have asked Hawkesbury Region Council staff to look into this. And but I haven't really heard much about this, so I just wanted to bring it once again to the table. So make sure that we actually don't let this go by the way, because there are still farmers who really would love to apply for this this fund. Because they have a need, and that could be a real lifesaver for them. And it is, this commercial fund for commercial entities is based on a 50-50. So the farmers themselves, it's not just a free grant, it actually is something that they actually will put 50% in themselves and 50% out of the grant. So if you, for instance, had 10 million available in the fund to actually be given out to farmers to apply due to cyclone issues, that actually will then become a $20 million of total fund that actually can be applied to the farming community to rectify the damage that's been done by Cyclone Gabrielle. So it's just a comment just to make it, keep it alive.
Thank you, Councillor Van Beek. Usually we don't have replies, but I think an update could be provided by Dr. Nick on the commercial fund.
Okay.
Yes.
Through you, Chair, there was around $8 million unallocated in that fund. Around 45% of those original applications went through to the pastoral sector, but there was an ongoing, everybody recognises an ongoing need in the pastoral sector. We are working together with the Regional Recovery Agency with Department of Internal Affairs now on future use of that money, with everybody focused on keeping it in Hawke's Bay for those industries. DIA are in the position now of they know our view, and they need to seek some further guidance potentially from ministers. So it's a live discussion, and happy to keep members updated.
Thank you.
Thank you for that response. Thank you, Koto. That is the end of our council meeting. We will move into hearings. They do start at 10 o'clock. So we'll give each other a minute just to get organised, and I will invite Simon up if he's here.
Oh, he's not here, but Chantal is online.
Okay.
To start with Chantal.
I am. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Chantal. Just give us a few minutes. We're just moving and transitioning from council to hearings. Thank you.
Chantal. Yeah, the next one. 106A.
close it to minutes. There might